Welcome to FinaMetrica's web training series. Today's session, we'll be discussing obtaining your client's informed consent. First, you'll start the conversation so that you can ensure that you have instructions upon which you can rely on. Then we'll look at things that you should do. Further conversation will help you quickly develop an in-depth understanding of your client and accelerate the establishment of the relationship of trust. We'll move into risk management, learn how FinaMetrica helps you meet legal obligations and makes it easy to prove that you did, should this be necessary. By incorporating the FinaMetrica methodology, you're sure to obtain informed consent. So starting with things that you must do. First, you'll need to confirm the accuracy of the report. You must ask your clients whether or not they believe the report accurately reflects them. Some clients are surprised by their scores and may question the accuracy. Reasons for possible inaccuracies may be 1. Mechanical mistakes in selecting the answer options. If there are multiple mistakes, the questionnaire should be redone again. The results are objective statistical comparison between their answers and the answers given by their sample population, those in their risk group. Second, if there aren't any inaccuracy based upon mechanical errors, you'll want to ask them how they form their views about other people's risk tolerance and who they might be comparing themselves to. Next, you'll explore investment choices. You'll continue the discussion in the investment section, in particular, any differences reported. Differences will occur in virtually all tests. You'll want to make sure you're educating your client about risk and return, so that you're managing their expectations. In particular, question number 16, when they're asked to select their preferred portfolio. Question number 14, where they select their downside comfort. And on question number 21, their investment expectation in comparison to term deposits. The report shows historical performance and the reasonableness or otherwise of your client's expectation. Remember that if adjusting the agreed score, the reasons for the adjustment should be noted and duly signed off by the client. The adjusted score should be used in the calculations. If your client has completed the 10-question version of the test, it automatically takes into account any differences in the key 5 investment questions and provides an adjusted risk tolerance score and group where applicable. The 10-question version uses an adjusted algorithm to adjust the risk tolerance group whenever necessary. Now we'll move on to things that you should do. First, you'll want to start by checking the risk groups. On average, male clients are at the high end of risk group 4 and females at the lower end of risk group 4. Where a client is more than 2 risk groups away from these averages, they are considered outliers, and this should be discussed. Next, checking self-impression. This would apply to the 25-question test version only. If the client's estimate of their risk tolerance score is 10 points or more away from their actual score, you'll want to raise this now, if it hadn't previously been mentioned in the accuracy of the report in the must-dos. Checking the number of differences. As previously mentioned, differences occur among virtually all tests. While those within a risk group are similar, they are not clones. To see 2 to 5 for the 25-question test or 1 to 3 in the 10-question test is not uncommon. Scores that tend to fall at either end of the risk group spectrum tend to have more differences than those in the middle. For tests with 8 or more differences, this shows a lack of consistency in financial matters. It is not a negative characteristic. Some people are just less consistent than others. But it's definitely helpful for both the client and the advisor to have discussed this openly and identified it. You should discuss the differences that are significantly outside of their risk tolerance range, as they are more important than those that fall just outside of their risk group. It is Important not to make too much of any particular difference. In the Making Financial Decisions section at the top of the report as shown on screen, you'll want to look for any differences between the level of risk your clients are willing to take as opposed to the level of risk previously in the financial past. If there is a change, you'll want to understand why. Risk management. All practices are likely to have dissatisfied clients sooner or later, even practices with perfect processes. You may encounter impossible to please irrational or dishonest clients. Sensible risk management will aim, firstly, to minimize the incidence of dissatisfied clients, and secondly, to maximize their practice's ability to defend itself. In most cases, the dissatisfied client will have lost money. Elements of their claim will be, in formulating your advice, you didn't understand the level of risk they were willing to take, or in presenting your advice, you didn't explain the risk involved in the strategy recommended. You will need to be able to prove that you did both. In particular, you must be able to defend a situation where the plan's recommended investment strategy involved risk beyond which they would normally take. Obtaining your client's informed consent. You must be able to establish that the client's stated goals required a plan whose inherent risk was greater than their risk tolerance. This gap between risk required and risk tolerance was disclosed to the client. Alternatives were discussed, whether that be saving more, delaying goals, or lowering or forgoing a goal. And lastly, that the client chose the alternative that involved increased risk. This is the meaning of obtaining informed consent. If you do this, you will have minimized the incidence of dissatisfied clients. If you can prove that you did, you will have maximized your ability to defend yourself. By using FinaMetrica's risk tolerance test and by following the FinaMetrica methodology, you will be able to obtain informed consent and be able to prove that you did. As a best practice, you'll always want to demonstrate to clients that their needs are being fully considered, that you've identified the needs for decisions, the alternatives, and their consequences. Where client has doubt or concern, simply revisit the documentation. By following an informed consent and commitment process, you empower your clients and they accept responsibility for their decisions. This brings us to the end of our seminar today on obtaining informed consent. Thank you for joining us.